Nordic.
Homeland Security says it set a 15-year record for the fewest border apprehensions in a single day. Just 200 undocumented migrants were checked in at the southern border.
This is Jim Ryan. One of the more controversial CBP encounters involves a charter bus stopped at a Border Patrol checkpoint last Friday. After the driver was unable to respond in English, agents boarded the bus and demanded paperwork from everyone. Turns out it was a busload of Las Cruces high school students and coaches headed to a swim meet in Albuquerque.
A new warning for consumers about a gold scam. ABC's Dan Krauth.
Here's how authorities say the scam works. Victims receive a pop-up message on their computer saying their information has been compromised. Victims will then call and speak to someone posing as a tech company representative or federal agent.
We got a lot of things to discuss.
The scammer will convince victims that in order to secure their assets, they will need to convert their savings into gold bars and hand them over to the government.
The FBI says Americans have been defrauded of some $126 million in just 1 year. The state's health department confirms that the measles outbreak in rural West Texas has grown to 124 cases across 9 counties. 8 people are hospitalized. The outbreak is largely spreading in the Mennonite community. A Missouri woman has pleaded guilty of trying to defraud Elvis Presley's family by attempting to auction off Graceland. Lisa Jeannie Finley pleaded guilty to a federal charge of mail fraud, aggravated identity theft, and more. Dave Packer, ABC News.
Do you hear that? Asthma triggers are everywhere, from dust mites, pet dander, and pollen, to smog and smoke. An asthma attack can strike anywhere, anytime. Be prepared with quick-acting Primatene Mist. Clinically proven to open airways quickly. It's the #1 FDA-approved asthma inhaler available over the counter. Primatene Mist. Breathe easy again. Use as directed.
News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KBNU.
5:05 now, and with your KPNU News update, I'm Will Feelright. Officials have released additional details about the building fire Saturday morning that killed a Logan woman. Investigators say they've now determined that blaze was accidental. Logan City Fire Assistant Chief Craig Humphreys said the victim has been identified as 40-year-old Tara Lynn Ross Kelly. Her body was discovered by firefighters inside one of the rooms of the building near 817 West, 1000 South. Now, emergency crews first received a report of the fire by a 911 caller at around 7:43 a.m. Saturday morning. Now, while en route, the complainant had said that one of the 5 occupants was missing. Now, Humphreys said after conducting an investigation, the cause of the fire has been determined as combustible materials in contact with a natural gas wall-mounted heater.
In this particular case, I think the fire ignited. I think it started off a little slow with a lot of smoke and carbon monoxide. And we always recommend from any heat-producing source that someone may have in their home, whether that be a natural gas heater, a portable heater, or a wood-burning stove, it's a good idea to keep at least a 3 feet distance between combustible materials, or follow the manufacturer's specifications.
Now, firefighters report that there were no working smoke or carbon monoxide detectors inside the room. There were 4 other occupants in the building at the time. They were all able to safely evacuate without any injuries. Humphrey said the hearts of the Logan City Fire Department goes out to those impacted by this tragedy. And within Utah State University's Emma Eccles-Jones College of Education and Human Resources, Associate Professor Travis Dorsch and 2 doctoral students are conducting research to collect data on abuse in sports, and not only at the collegiate level, but also in the intramural, extramural, and also recreational play in young adult programs. Now, Dorsch said the USU's contract with Lasso Safe will allow the school to provide the nonprofit with a reliable data collection that'll keep Lasso Safe at the front of the safeguarding space. Now, Lasso Safe is a nonprofit global coalition dedicated to transforming the way safety is approached in sports and how important it is for athletes to feel safe and supported. They've created systems that promote safer athletes by reducing physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. And a bill moving through the Utah State Legislature would clear the way for the Salt Palace to undergo a massive redesign. Now, Senate Bill 306, which is sponsored by Senator Dan McKay, a Republican from Riverton, would allow Salt Lake County to shift some transportation funds to help pay for a reimagined Salt Palace. Now, it's a key part of larger plans for a downtown sports, entertainment, and arts district, which is envisioned by the Smith Entertainment Group, which now owns the Utah Jazz and the Utah Hockey Club. Now, Salt Lake County Mayor Jenny Wilson said the changes envisioned are substantial. The bill passed out of the Senate Revenue and Taxation Committee unanimously on Monday and is now headed to the full Senate for debate. Well, we've had temperatures in the mid-40s today. Now tonight, we're going to be in the mid-20s as we'll continue to see mostly clear skies through the rest of the week, as daytime temperatures tomorrow and Thursday expected to stay back in the mid-40s. We'll see 50s returning for Friday and into the weekend, and another chance of rain and snow headed our way for Sunday night into Monday. And news and weather this hour brought to you by Cardall's Insulation. If you're looking for a more efficient and quieter home, you may want to check out your insulation. Call Cardall's Insulation at 755-5012 as they bring you news and weather here at the bottom of the hour. And I'm Will Feelright with your KVNU News Update. More of KVNU's For the People show with Jason Williams on the way next.
The colder weather is here. Are your quilts and blankets looking dingy? Is your winter coat or jacket dirty enough to stand in the corner just by itself? Well, go to Mount Logan Laundry. It'll take no time at all to freshen up everything. They have the 55 and 80-pound washers, the biggest around, and great big dryers, too, and it costs a whole lot less than dry cleaning. Free Wi-Fi and drop-off service. Mount Logan Laundry really is the cleanest spot in town on the corner of 5th East, 9th North, and Logan, or in Brigham at 1st East, 7th South. Mount Logan Laundry.
Keeping you informed 24/7. News Talk KVNU 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Thanks to our amazing clients and team, Choles Financial is the silver winner for Financial Planner in 2024 Best of Northern Utah. We appreciate your support.
25 NCAA championships, 18 conference championships.
And the Aggies are going dancing.
10 tournament championships.
The Aggies are pulling out the scissors, and they're going to cut down the nest.
Our winning culture continues. Our Utah State Aggies play here on the Aggie Sports Network.
Pre-game begins 1 hour before tip-off. Don't miss game day on your home of the Aggies. News Talk KVNU.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Hour 2 of today's show. Time for your legislative update. It's quite a big day on Capitol Hill today as we round the corner into, this week and next, basically, on the legislative session. We are officially on day 35 of the legislative session. They do count weekends in the session, so all is said and done a week from this Friday when things will wrap up, and they will go until probably 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock starting this week, and then into 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and even on those final 2 nights, sometimes they go till midnight trying to get everything done. So, or to stop everything. It depends on what you're talking about, what their motives might be. But we have the latest for you. There are a couple of big things that happened just today on Capitol Hill. One of those is first off, I wanted to talk about this because it hasn't gotten a lot of attention, but this is exactly what it sounds like. Senator Jerry Stevenson has a bill, SB 62. The bill file had been made public, but it hadn't been titled until today. And it was titled today as Spaceport Exploration Committee. And yes, this is a bill that creates the Spaceport Exploration Committee, creates a committee and establishes the rules for membership and the responsibilities of that committee, and then appropriates $1 million in operating and capital budgets to fiscal year 2026. And again, it is exactly what it sounds like. It is a spaceport feasibility study meant to From the language of the bill, study to determine the feasibility of establishing a spaceport that includes a market analysis that evaluates the demand for space launch services in Utah, including potential government, commercial, and international customers and competitors, blah, blah, blah. Spaceport sitting assessment means an assessment that is informed by the results of a spaceport feasibility study. This would be a spaceport that could be used for scientific missions, satellite launches, national defense missions, commercial space flights. The justification for this is the proximity of course, Hill Air Force Base, already here in Utah, but also the open space, especially in the western desert, where a launch pad and spaceport for space cargo and resupply missions for the International Space Station, space industry research and development labs, and more could be constructed. And this took everybody by surprise, myself included. We haven't heard talk before of actually building a spaceport here, but I think it would be really cool. And so there was some pushback on this. This is $1 million operating budget and capital budget expenses for the committee alone to start and complete a feasibility study on this. Stevenson was asked today on the Senate floor when the bill was first noticed by his colleagues, what kind of a time frame are we thinking of here? And he said, I'll be honest with you, I have no idea. It was brought to my attention as a state senator that there was interest in this type of thing. And I thought, that would be great to have this in Utah, if possible, and let's look into it. But, of course, a feasibility study is the easiest way, maybe not the cheapest way, but the easiest way to thoroughly look into something like this. Part of the bill also lays out what happens if the committee does decide that a spaceport is feasible. It lays out that so the committee would be made up of 2 members of the Senate, 2 members of the House, an executive director from the department or executive director's designee from the Department of the Utah Inland Port Authority, and it would be represented as well by executive director, but from the Department of Commerce and the Department of, what was the other one here? I can't find it now. It would also have 2 liaisons from local military organizations, and they would serve as co-chairs. So this would be kind of a quasi-military thing. The president of the state's largest aerospace and defense industry group would be represented, the executive director of that group, and 4 members that the governor would appoint. 1 member of the propulsion division of a large defense contractor, 1 member from a national law firm, 1 member representing a company located in the state of Utah that produces specialty chemicals for aerospace and defense industry, and 1 member representing a nonprofit organization that is located in Utah and specializes in defense and aerospace matters. So that's pretty specific, which implies that Stevenson has talked to some folks who are interested in serving on this committee. And again, I think it's a good idea. It's $1 million. Feasibility study might conclude Utah's not a great location for this. The military would never use it. NASA's not interested. I think we should explore it. I love the idea of being I've always wanted to travel to one of the existing spaceports in Texas or Florida and see a big launch, a big NASA launch. I've never had the opportunity. It would be really cool if you could do that with just a couple of hours of driving out into the western desert somewhere, or maybe it would be down south in San Juan County. I don't know. No one's really talked about location here, but the bill, Senate Bill 62 is the bill number if you want to read it. Spaceport Exploration Committee, a bill that would appropriate some funding and create a committee to begin a feasibility study for building a space launch port here in the state of Utah. Also generating some excitement or anxiety today, and also attached to Senator Jerry Stevenson's name, was another bill file opened by the senator just today. Now, this bill file, the spaceport bill file, is old. It didn't have any language until today. This bill file is brand new, meaning that this is a late addition to the legislative agenda, but it's a big bill. And it mentioned things like taxpayer funds and appropriating for stadiums and things like that. The first reaction everyone had to this is, Are taxpayers about to officially be on the hook for building the Major League Baseball stadium, something else? The bill itself has language that says stadiums. So, of course, this was the first question in today's Senate media availability, and here's what Senator Stevenson had to say.
Well, first of all, it's a work in progress. We still have quite a bit to do on this. We needed to get it numbered and out. But let me just kind of tell you a little bit about what's going on here. There are a lot of things tied to a sporting event that we will most likely have in the state of Utah in 2034. Okay. And what this does is it just allows the capture of some tax increment to help fund some of those facilities. Doesn't have anything to do with football, baseball, hockey, basketball. It's not. This isn't a way around trying to fund these type of activities. So I think that's been most of the questions that we've had with it. It really helps private landowners. If you've noticed, I've ran quite a bit of legislation this year on the public infrastructure districts. This is another one that ties into that and helps fund the basics of these type of.
So when you talk about public infrastructure districts, you're talking Inland Port, Mida, and Point of the Mountain.
All of those have access to funds through a public infrastructure district, as does any community in the state of Utah and private developers as they work in coordination with those. So.
But at the bottom line, does this mean taxpayers are going to be footing the bill for improvements to some of these stadiums, even if they're privately owned, so that we can host the Olympics?
I can't say that word, but it's a sporting event of 2034.
But so, but are taxpayers going to be footing the bill?
But no. you know how increment works, Ben, don't you? Is that if the project doesn't get built, there's no taxes. If the project gets built, it's the difference in what happens. So
what are you capturing the property tax?
It'd be.
Let me explain this. You take a piece of raw ground, has nothing on it. So it's probably grazing ground or a piece of agricultural property, and it has a $10 per acre tax increment associated with it. But when you build a nice, big, fancy building on it, that's millions and millions of dollars, you create tax increment.
The difference in what the $10 was and the current.
And the millions. So you've created this tax increment, and then you can, and in the process, you bond for infrastructure to build or to get that the sewer, water, so forth into that. And then when you do that bond, you then need a mechanism for paying back. So you capture some of the increase in tax increment to do that. That's what this does.
So let me maybe go further. So if you didn't have the increment, that facility may not be built. So that tax revenue wouldn't have been there. Then usually the increment gets captured for a period of time, 15, 20, 25 years. But then after that 25 years, that facility is there cranking out tax revenue that wouldn't have existed. And that's, we've used it all quite a bit throughout the state. So I don't know how you'd say that taxpayers were footing the bill because it wouldn't be built without it. Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about like the Delta Center, American First Field, things like that.
No, we're talking about facilities that will be built. It could be low-income housing to house Olympians when they're here. So there's just a lot of. We're not putting it into facilities like that. It's for the infrastructure that services those facilities.
And that, folks, is the most complicated yes you've probably ever heard. The question again was, will taxpayers be on the hook to fund the infrastructure for these new Olympic facilities? And the answer, which took them nearly 3 minutes to get around to and still never really say, is yes. Taxpayers are paying for the infrastructure to build these new Olympic facilities. Now, they are correct. These facilities will make the money back 15, 20, after the capture period ends, 15, 20 years down the road, Utah will get a lot of tax revenue off of this, and that will assumedly allow them to then, put that back towards the taxpayers who basically floated the 20-year loan interest-free. Well, not even really loan, because it's never paid back by the private owner. It's good business for the state. It's not a dumb thing for the state to do, but lawmakers there recognizing it's not something people like to hear, that taxpayers are going to be building the infrastructure for these private developers to then build buildings. And the question, again, was, will taxpayers be doing this? And you never heard a yes, but after about 3 minutes of wandering around there, they answered the question. Yes, taxpayers will be paying for the infrastructure for these new Olympic buildings. And again, the state will get its money back 20 years down the road. But why not just say yes? It's a simple yes or no question. More of the recap of day 35 on Capitol Hill as the 45-day legislative session winds to a close next week, right after this.
News Talk 610 AM, 102.1 FM, KVNU.
Nestled in the heart of breathtaking landscape, Maple Creek Ranch on the north end of Cache Valley is more than just land. It's where your story begins. It's the perfect location for building your dream home. But only a few lots remain, so act now to claim your piece of paradise. Imagine mornings with breathtaking views, evenings by the fire, and every moment surrounded by the peaceful charm of nature. With stunning views, babbling brooks, and miles of wilderness. Google Maple Creek Ranch to learn more about these final few lots.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
Is your mom or dad struggling to get in and out of their chair? Hi, I'm Jay Broadbent with Alpine Home Medical. We've seen it happen for years. As customers come into our store and they've had a recent fall, they're finally ready to ask for some help. Don't wait until you're injured. We have everything you need to avoid the fall before it happens. Now until the end of February, we're running a deal that we think you're going to love. When you purchase a lift chair, you can unlock 10% off your entire purchase. Get side tables, canes, shower chairs, walkers, and even ramps. We're open Monday through Friday. We've got stores from Idaho Falls to St. George and now in Tooele. Come into any one of our 11 locations and let us help you. Find us online at alpinehomemedical.com.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
Hi, this is Gordon Deal. Wednesday on This Morning, America's First News. A new report says identifying government waste isn't the hard part. It's doing something about it that's the trick. We'll explain why. Also, consumers may be carrying the economy right now, but it's a small percentage of them. It's the haves versus the have-nots. And customers who've seen enough of self-checkout lines at big box stores. Wednesday on This Morning, America's First News. From 4 to 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM. Your station for news and talk.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Coming up, what lawmakers had to say today about the big election bill that no one really knows what it even is going to look like. This was a bill that originally looked like a kind of a fancy footwork way to do away with mail-in ballots, which are very popular here in Utah. So that would have gone over great, right? And then when people started to challenge the sponsor, Senator Mike McKell, on that, he kind of walked that back, and now they've made some other changes. And they say their whole goal here is to increase confidence. But cities are now weighing in, saying it looks like what you're going to do is take us back to single-digit turnout, which was the whole point of moving to this new system, to increase turnout. So what are your priorities here? And that has kind of put the legislature, or at least the sponsor and a few supporters of the bill in the legislature, on the spot. So what they had to say about that coming up in just a bit. Before we get to that, though, focusing on Cache Valley lawmakers as much as we can, and it's pretty easy with a couple of them because they're running a lot of stuff, specifically Representative Casey Snider. This was a bill that got a lot of discussion around it, even though it's just a joint resolution, which means it's a joint resolution from either, so you'll see them either as SJR, Senate Joint Resolution, or HJR, House Joint Resolution. And it basically means the House and the Senate have conferred with each other, and they agree this is the opinion of the legislature. So it's meaningless, technically, but it can send a message. It can say, here's where the legislature is on this. So imagine the legislature passes a joint resolution saying the House and the Senate majorities agree that cities should focus on this. Well, cities see that happen, and then they know, okay, if the legislature saying basically make this a priority. If we don't do that, then the legislature might feel compelled to step in more directly in a more micromanaging kind of way. And so it is a way to send a message. But when you're talking about a joint resolution that involves other states, who knows what the value of this is. But for what it's worth, House Joint Resolution 9, joint resolution regarding Utah's share of the Colorado River water, basically says that Utah, like 5 other states, has a right to some shares of the Colorado River water, and that, the number of shares, all of that stuff could be up for debate, and is right now, because we're now finally admitting we don't know how much water there is to divvy up between the 5 states anyway. Always been working with bad water data on that one for about 100 years. Now we admit that, and we're reassessing, and the 5 states have, a mandate basically to come up with a long-term agreement on water management of the Colorado River, with the health of the river being a high priority, of course. And Utah gets a part of that conversation and a part of the water shares, obviously. This joint resolution basically says Utah has these shares coming to it, and it can use them within the borders of the state any way it wants to. This raised a lot of eyebrows. A lot of people saying, what is the point of this? Or is this hinting at some long-term future plan for water out of the Colorado River? Remember, only recently did we scrap the idea of piping water from the Colorado River across the state to St. George. That has DOA'd at this point because of the lack of water in the Colorado River. I doubt that plan is going to resurface, but people started to wonder, is this indicative of another plan to do something similar? Well, here's what Representative Casey Snider from here in Cache Valley had to say when the bill was presented in a committee hearing this week.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be brief because we probably have some conversations that may take a little while on some other provisions.
Fill that mic up.
Thank you. Sorry. So this resolution is fairly simple in its scope. What it is meant to do is reaffirm to our federal delegation and to those that are negotiating on behalf of the state in various discussions on the Colorado, what the state understands about the Colorado, and then in the therefore provision, it's what we reaffirm. And just so the committee is aware, the state declares that it is our position, and this is again meant to inform the federal delegation, that we have the right to use our allocation of the Colorado at any location that we can connect with the Colorado. So it's just, as the policy on this system is moving forward, we just wanted to make sure our federal delegation knew of our position. So with that, Mr. Chair, I will yield to any questions.
Thank you. I'll bring it back to committee for discussion. I see none. Anyone online? Oh, excuse me. Anyone in the room? Oh, we got one down here. Your light finally came on. Representative Benyon.
Thank you. I want to thank the sponsor for this resolution. I just have some questions about the historical apportionment. Mm-hmm. As I've tried to understand our history, I believe we were over allocated. The whole basin was over allocated. And I just wonder if there's any thought about that with this resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. So, the dividing of the river is based on flows that from nearly 100 years ago, when it is said that the system was at its peak in terms of flow in the Colorado. We're not in the particulars of this. We're not getting into that discussion. There are those discussions happening right now with the 7 states as to what would happen. The Bureau of Reclamation has said that if the states don't come together to solve this problem, there may be some curtailment advanced by the Bureau of Reclamation. Those discussions are happening right now. This is not seeking to necessarily get into that piece, but as you look at how the river was divided up, the upper basin states have, on paper, water that they have not been able to utilize, and that's us and Wyoming and others. We are reaffirming that the lower basin states have got their full allotment. We have not, and if we're going to have discussions about the river and use moving forward, we just want to reaffirm to our delegation, so they know the position of the state, that we still believe that there are rights that we are entitled to if there is water, and that our right does include also the opportunity to take water from the river at a location we determine, consistent with the terms of the compact.
There you have it. An explanation from Representative Casey Snider on House Joint Resolution 9, joint resolution regarding Utah's share of Colorado River water. And he makes it pretty simple, despite the confusion around this one when it first was made public. Basically just sending a message to our representatives in Congress and to anyone who might be negotiating on behalf of the state of Utah in the Interior Department conversations around the new compact that will be developed, saying the state of Utah believes it is, like the other states, entitled to these shares, even if we haven't used them all in the past, and that we reserve the right that we believe as a state is written into the compact, which Rep. Snider is correct on this one. It is written into the compact that the state of Utah can connect to the Colorado River to withdraw those shares at any location they choose. What this means going forward, who knows? But as Representative Snider said there, it's basically just letting those who are speaking for Utah in all of these conversations know where the legislature is at. Kind of an important thing to do. Where this all goes is still way up in the air. 5 states involved, the Interior Department involved, and of course, still some big questions about how much water is in the Colorado River to use in the first place. So we'll see what comes of it all. But an update there from Representative Snider. And by the way, if you'd like to read House Joint Resolution 9, it is extremely short, Bill, because it's a resolution. I've linked to that on our Facebook page. And the status of the bill, it passed the House committee that you just heard the audio from there with a vote of 11-0 with 3 absent and 11-4, 0 against. And it passed the House today unanimously, 65-4 and 0 against, 10 absent. So we'll see what happens in the Senate. We'll be back with more of KVN News for the people on the other side of these headlines with KVN News. We'll feel right.
Well, thank you, Jason. In an exclusive interview, ABC News has spoken to the estranged husband of Ruby Franke, the so-called mom influencer who pleaded guilty to child abuse charges last year. Now, Kevin Franke and his oldest son, Chad Franke, spoke about the Utah mom of 6 who is known for her tough parenting while carefully crafting her image to millions of subscribers on her YouTube channel. Now, here's ABC's Eva Pilgrim and Kevin Franke referring to Jody Hildebrandt, who is the life coach and therapist that the family was using.
She came across as somebody who was firm and very authoritative. So we thought, oh, this is a perfect fit. What became surprising to me was when the focus gradually shifted away from just solely on our children to us as a couple.
Do you feel like she brainwashed you?
She took control of something that was very, very important to me. My marriage, my family, and she used those like a carrot on a stick.
Now, Kevin Franke says despite everything that has happened to his wife, and their children, he still has feelings for Ruby Franke.
I don't think I'll ever stop loving her. Does that mean that I want to let her back into my life, let her back into my kids' lives? Absolutely not.
Meanwhile, in other news, Utah appears to be the first state ready to put a full ban on fluoride in public water systems under a bill that doesn't allow cities or communities to decide whether to add the cavity-preventing mineral. Now, a bill sponsor and an organization opposed to fluoridating water said that Utah's proposal would set a precedent for the rest of the United States, and it comes as new federal health secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has expressed skepticism about water fluoridation. Now, Utah's bill cleared its final hurdle in the legislature on Friday and is now awaiting Governor Spencer Cox's signature. So far, there's been no word as to whether or not he will sign the bill. Now, lawmakers who backed the bill, which was sponsored by State Republican Representative Stephanie Grisius and also State Senator Kirk Cullimore, said that putting fluoride in the water is become too expensive. And a man was arrested after police in Provo say they discovered a deceased person in a shed outside an apartment complex. Now, the woman was identified by Springville police yesterday morning in a social media post as Lisa Hyde, who had been missing since December of last year. According to arrest documents, the Provo Police Department received a 911 call on Sunday that there was a dead woman in a shed behind the apartment building. Now, when officers arrived on the scene, Arturo Currian, a 53-year-old, was standing outside the apartments and gave police a key that apparently opened one of those sheds. Now, Carrion, whose residence is listed as being a resident of that apartment complex, was arrested at the scene. He had reportedly told a witness the day before that he had done something wrong. Well, we've enjoyed mostly clear skies today as temperatures have been in the mid-40s. Now tonight we're going to drop into the mid-20s, and then we'll see this same weather pattern continue tomorrow into Thursday. A little warmer weather coming Friday and Saturday as we'll get back into the low 50s. Then we could see a chance of some rain or possibility of some snow for Sunday night into Monday. And Triton Medical Supply and Transportation offers you top-quality medical soft goods and also non-emergency medical transportation to and from your medical appointments. It's a partner for all your medical needs, Triton Medical Supply and Transportation. And I'm Will Feelright with your KVNU News update on this Tuesday afternoon. More of KVNU's For the People show on the way next.
ABC News, I'm Dave Packard. Sources telling ABC News that Ukraine and the U.S. have reached an agreement on a framework for a broad economic deal that would include access to Ukraine's rare earth minerals. Keep hoping that signing the agreement will ensure continued U.S. military support. President Trump asked about email that Elon Musk sent to federal employees over the weekend, asking them to list 5 things that they did. Was it voluntary?
Well, it's somewhat voluntary, but it's also, if you don't answer, I guess you get fired. What it really is do people exist?
President Trump announcing that his administration plans to sell a gold card, his version of a green card that'll cost $5 million. Trump saying it'll give wealthy people a fast track to citizenship. A close call at Chicago's Midway Airport, a Southwest passenger flight aborting its landing, pulling up just as a private jet crossed its path. The plane's just seconds from impact. The FAA says the business jet went onto the runway without authorization. This is ABC News.
If the cold temps lately have you turning up the thermostat, I've got a more efficient way to keep your home comfortable. Call Cardall's Insulation. That's right, insulation. Now you're probably wondering, does insulation actually go bad? Well, if your home was built before 1980, you should really consider new insulation because today's insulation is so much better. Even a lot of newer homes don't have sufficient insulation. So if your home is cold, if you feel a draft, call 755-5012. Cardall's Insulation, 755-5012.
Want to set yourself apart from the competition? The Leadership MBA at Utah State University will help you lead companies and drive change in your organization. You can attend in person in Logan on Thursday evenings or take an interactive online class. Complete your MBA in as little as a year. Apply before March 1st to be considered for summer semester. Contact the MBA office for a waiver of the $55 application fee. Learn more at utahstatemba.com. That's utahstatemba.com.
Wednesday edition, Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show. We will break down the absolute latest in the ongoing drama surrounding Elon Musk. Plus, Donald Trump recently endorsed Byron Donalds as the next governor of the state of Florida. He will join us, and we will also talk with the man trying to deport all the violent criminals, Tom Homan. Wednesday edition. Come hang on Clay and Buck.
10 to 1 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM and 610 AM.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Continuing on with our legislative update, day 35 of the 45-day legislative session, and we'll spend the entire hour on the one day on Capitol Hill. It was a big day on Capitol Hill. So we started out the hour again with news that Utah may be getting a spaceport. I'm all on board. I don't care what this costs us as taxpayers. To drive a couple of hours to watch a NASA rocket launch as opposed to having to go to Florida or Texas. Heck, oh, yeah, let's make this happen. No, what's happening, though, is $1 million in the appropriations process by Senator Jerry Stevenson put aside for a feasibility study to create a committee to look into this. Could this actually work in Utah? I think it could. I think it better. And then, of course, the tax cut news, quote-unquote tax cut, 0.05% income tax cut. Not a lot, right? But it is a tax cut, and they promised there would be one. So no word still on whether the Social Security tax cut the governor asked for is going to happen or not. We'll see. But again, everything has to be done by midnight next Friday, a week from this. So getting down to the wire on that one. Then, of course, you heard Representative Casey Snider explaining House Joint Resolution 9, which is basically just the legislature saying this is where we're at. This is our opinion on Colorado River water, our shares, and our ability to tap into the Colorado River wherever we choose within the state's borders. We just want to remind everyone speaking for Utah at the federal level that that's our opinion. It's part of the negotiation process with the Interior Department involved in this one, as well as 5 other states. So that Colorado River Compact, I believe they have until January of 2026 to get this done. So clock is ticking. Moving on. Big election bill has been, it was strange, actually. So this was unveiled. It was the discussion for like 2 days straight, and then silence, absolute silence from the Senate and the House on House Bill 300, sponsored by Representative Jefferson Burton, Republican from Salem, Utah, that would basically end mail-in balloting in Utah. Now, Burton, in some wordplay and some fast tap dancing, made it as if this weren't the case. He said, no. You'll still be mailed your ballot, but you'll have to deliver it in person. So basically, it ends mail-in balloting. Representative, don't expect us to not be smart enough to connect those dots. Now, if this is where we want to go, it's where we want to go, but it's offensive to pretend it isn't where your bill is taking us. House Bill 300, again, is the name of the bill. The bill started in the House. The Senate quickly signaled, we're in a whole different place on this one. No intent in the Utah Senate to end mail-in balloting, period. And then things stalled out. For 20 days, we heard nothing else. People were starting to think House Bill 300 was dead. And then today, it was very much alive with Senator Mike McKell taking the reins from Representative Jefferson Burton, although Burton is still the sponsor in the House, the original sponsor. McKell is the Senate sponsor. McKell kind of taking the reins on this one in the Senate and saying, we've actually been working on this for the last 20 days. That's why you haven't heard much. And we have made quite a bit of changes. Now, to be 100% out of the gate, transparent about the bill, the language online still shows an end to mail-in balloting, i.e., you be mailed your ballot, but you have to take it in person and show ID. So ending mail-in balloting, basically. The bill itself is a response, Speaker Mike Schultz says, to not to fraud, not to some wacky MyPillow guy conspiracy theory about stolen elections, but an actual audit that was done that showed a 4% error rate in signature verification in county clerk's offices around the state. That's not a lot, but it's enough. And then also an extremely close 2nd Congressional District 2024 primary. I talked about this yesterday, in which several hundred ballots were rejected because no one understood or expected those ballots to go to Vegas first and then come back to St. George and therefore be postmarked late, even though they were mailed on time. Those are the two things they're trying to solve here. But how to do that has been complicated, Senator McKell said.
Of the social on your ID. Phasing out Are you phasing out vote by mail because essentially it gives a 4-way runway to have to opt in? Like, tell me the big point.
I think it is the opposite. I think it's going to make. I think it phases it in over time. So when we looked at data as we've been working on this, it was about 25% of people updated their voter registration in 2024. 12% dropped off for not voting. So that voter roll was actually cleaned up by more than, it was, I think 38% was the number. So you have a 3-year, you've got this window where you opt in, but you opt in at every touch point. You can opt in by voting in person, you can opt in by updating your driver's license, you can opt in by renewing your registration, or you can simply go in and opt in. The idea was to make it very, very easy. So we're still working on it, but the opt-in is very, very easy, and I think that was a priority. So I think long term you phase in vote by mail. You'll see that once you opt in, that lasts for 8 years. You're renewing your driver's license sooner than every 8 years as well. So there's going to be a number of touch points where you opt in, and I think what you'll see is enhanced security, knowing that you put your driver's license number on the ballot, but a very, very easy opt-in process. I don't think you'll see any disruption with where the language sits right now.
But right now, you don't have to opt in at all. It's automatically voted to, or sent, ballots are automatically sent to active registered voters. So you are adding a step within 4 years. Everyone will have to opt in to vote by mail.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. So some of the principles that we looked at, I mean, again, we said this in the Senate, we want voting as easy as possible without cheating, but we also wanted to make sure that we enhance security. So what we've done with this language right now that we're working on is we've made it as easy as possible, but adding that additional enhancement in security. That's where the language is right now. I think we've really got it to a really good place.
In fact, I think he's landed it. I think it's brilliant because what we've done is we've allowed vote by mail to continue, but we put a security element in it that you have to add your state ID on it. And the state ID would probably have your driver's license. You have to show a birth certificate, a proof of citizenship to get a driver's license. So you have that security element. So now you've got both the ease of voting by mail and the security element in it. It did exactly what we said we were going to do, and I think it's a brilliant solution. And Senator McCall and Speaker Schultz have been working hard on it. I think they've hit a sweet spot, in my opinion.
Senator Kwan, your thoughts on it?
Yeah, thank you. I was going to say that access is always an issue for us to make sure that it is easy, as Senator McKell said, and we are of course also interested in secure and accurate voting, but we're going to be looking at this carefully to make sure that access is not restricted. That'll be our issue to be looking at. I look forward to looking at it.
Would clerks be looking at both voter ID numbers and signatures? Is signatures still going to be
Senator
on
McCall, I don't know about that one.
You know, that's one we're still working out. The priority is going to be the driver's license number or state ID number. And the other thing on the state ID number, if you don't have a state ID number, it's going to be free. We want it to be as easy as possible. And when we talk about the driver's license number, state ID number, one of the principles that I think we've all been concerned about is just the timeliness of elections, the timeliness of actually counting. This is going to speed up the process by being able to rely on that state ID number, driver's license number. We should get results back quicker because of it.
Do the clerks say that?
The clerks at first needed time to talk to vendors and make sure that software could process a driver's license number. They've been working on that issue. The feedback that I've gotten is that the software that processes the ballots is able to be programmed to look at that number. Other states do it, so it should speed it up.
Robert, you got a question back here, then we're going to go.
Sorry, you already covered this.
No, you're good.
What is the logic, what is the rationale for going away to this opt-in rather than vote by mail? It seems like you're saying we want to get it.
It is vote by mail.
It's easy as well, it's not. It's
like you have to
opt-in. I mean, why put that opt-in piece in there in the first place?
So the rationale that we've looked at, and this is the rationale coming from the Speaker and the House, is when you look at the polling's clear that people in Utah are really comfortable with our election. There's a high confidence, but the polling is also clear that adding some additional security is positive. So the opt-in process that that is in the bill right now adds that enhanced security, because the opt-in is with your ID, and that's the point, is we want to enhance the security. So that's what it does. I've done some polling even in my own area. The voters in my area support vote by mail, but when I ask the question, can we do better? Should we enhance security? I think you see that there are a number of voters and a statistical majority of voters who want to find ways to enhance that.
And this will happen naturally. How long to do it?
Yeah, so it's going to happen over the next 3 to 4 years.
4 years to opt in, that's a long time.
And one of the data points I mentioned before, in 2024, it was about 25% went in and updated their voter registration. They affirmative did that, and that's a touch point that naturally happens. 12% dropped off because they didn't vote within that four-year cycle. So you're at 38% that naturally updated that voter registration in 2024. So what I think we're going to see, Robert, is over the next 3 years, 4 years, this process of cleaning the voter roll and opting in, it's going to naturally occur, and I think it's going to be fairly seamless and easy.
More questions about, there you go.
Under the current election system, folks can, there's a carve out for people who are members of tribal nations to register to vote using their tribal ID that doesn't necessarily have a number. So how will that number element work when people vote from reservations or who just have the tribal ID?
I think it's
so some of that is, we're addressing that in the bill, and I need to go back and look because the language just dropped. But what we make clear is that you do have an opportunity to have this free state ID if you don't have it. We do have some exceptions. We do have folks with disabilities and some difficulties, and we have some of those exceptions. Those are the same exceptions that exist before. But if there's an individual that doesn't have a state ID, that's going to be free, and that's in the language of the bill right now.
And if I may, on this point, that I was going to say, not everybody has a driver's license. Not everybody that's eligible to vote has a driver's license, and that's also they may have citizens where English is a second language. So that is going to have to be a point in how are we going to get the information out? How are we going to access our voters, and how our voters are going to access if there are changes, how are they going to get that information? There's also the issue of having. I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought. There's also the issue of having. There's no evidence of widespread fraud. Right. So these are changes that may be based on something that the system was already working.
There you have it. A lengthy discussion on House Bill 300, which has now kind of been taken over by the Senate, it sounds like. And a lot of questions remain about what the bill will actually do, what the language will actually say. The Senate sponsor, Mike McKell, there himself saying the language was just updated. I need to go back and look at it again myself. But either way, lawmakers seem determined to do something. And right now, this is apparently where they're at. They have about 10 days still to tweak and fiddle with this before it would be too late to pass it and send it to the governor for signature. And we'll see if they get there. House Bill 300 is the number of the bill if you want to read it yourself. It's really long, but still recommend you do. le.utah.gov to do that. And we'll be back. Wrap up the show today right after this.
The Logan Home Show is back this Friday and Saturday at the Cache County Event Center, February 28th through March 1st. Admission and parking are free. Meet local and national vendors ready to help you with your next home improvement project. From solar power, home automation, security, remodeling, design, and much more. See the latest in home improvement, plus free demonstrations. Don't miss the Logan Home Show this weekend at the Cache County Event Center. See times and more online at loganhomeshow.com.
The Best of Northern Utah contest is back, presented by Alpine Cleaning and Restoration. We're asking you to think about those special places that make our community unique and nominate them now at bestofnorthernutah.com. Perhaps you know a mechanic or handyman that goes the extra mile. Maybe a restaurant where you love to unwind, your hairstylist, a favorite car wash, or a medical professional who truly cared. Nominate any business right now at bestofnorthernutah.com. Presented by Alpine Cleaning and Restoration.
Best of Northern Utah.
Hi, it's Olivia Munn with my shelter pets, Frankie and Chance, reminding you that when you adopt a shelter pet, you discover all the things that make them unique. Adopt pure love at theshelterpetproject.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the Humane Society of the United States, and Maddie's Fund.
To protect her home and family in a disaster, Karen was willing to wade through water, mud, and insurance paperwork.
Yeah, I can do this.
You go, Karen! By simply understanding and updating what her insurance covers and doesn't cover now, she'll be better prepared no matter when disaster strikes. Learn other simple ways to protect your home and family before a natural disaster at ready.gov. That's ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
This is the Sean Hannity Show.
The Delta smelt, if you look it up and look at a picture of it, it looks like a little minnow fish. It's not even like an exotic fish. And by the way, not even an endangered species. And they cared more about the Delta smelt than they did about the farmers, and the farmers lost their entire livelihood because they chose a minnow fish that was not even on the endangered species list over the farmers.
Weekday afternoons from 1 to 4 on News Talk KVNU.
That's our show for today. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Tomorrow on the program, more legislative action. Things are going to start to speed up, as I mentioned, and we'll see if that Social Security tax cut gets laid out there. It's expected to be. So that's tomorrow on the program, and leave you all with this. A creative sentence from a judge, a Michigan judge, in order to punish some young shoplifters, sentenced them to, well, washing cars in the same Walmart parking lot. The judge said he felt this was a appropriate response. Them being young, he didn't want to ruin their lives with a heftier criminal record, but he thought they should have to face the shoppers that they were potentially raising prices on by shoplifting. For 30 days, every weekend, these 4 young men will be washing cars in a Michigan parking lot of a Walmart.